Welcome to Wildlife Rehabilitation from Rescue to Release, a podcast dedicated to licensed wildlife rehabilitators and the veterinarians who support them. I'm your host, Gail Buell. Thanks for joining us again for part 2. This is about bald eagles and lead toxicosis. Lead, of course, affects everybody, and in wildlife rehabilitation, we see it in a lot of animals. But animals that are at the kind of the top of the food chain, like bald eagles, tend to be prime targets for it, and bald eagles are extremely sensitive to it. Other birds can get it, other mammals can get lead toxicosis, but we're specifically talking about bald eagles. And we're talking with Dr. Julia Ponder. She's the Director Emeritus of the Raptor Center at the University of Minnesota. And that's where Partners for Wildlife is housed. There's a lot of expertise housed there and a lot of really good information. So hope you listen, hope you enjoy it, and get a lot of good information. Okay, so let's get back to our bald eagle that has come in and has been tested for lead. Now we've discovered that, yes, it does have lead, which 90% of them have at least low levels of lead coming in. So now what? For simplicity, let's say that there's nothing else complicating this. There's no broken bones. There's no anything else. So let's say it's just, we'll just do straight across the board. Has a level of lead toxicity. You can pick the level, and let's talk about what we do about it.
So first and foremost, let's focus on the fact that the decision to treat and how to treat any decision is based on not just the lead levels, but also the clinical signs. So traditionally for years, we just kind of, if it was over 20 micrograms per deciliter in the blood, we automatically treated. Now, an interesting, if you look back at the historical lead data, I don't know the most recent lead data as well, but for the past 20 years, most eagles that come in are either below 20 micrograms per deciliter, which is that background level, or very high and acute. We considered those in the 20 to 60 or even 60 to 100 range as treatable.
Okay.
The challenge was we didn't see very many in that range. They were either low or they're very, very high. That can change, and those kind of numbers change from year to year. However, what we did learn over time is, again, that when we did start treating them, we didn't treat just or decide to treat or euthanize just on blood levels. The decision whether to pursue treatment or to humanely euthanize the animal, because we weren't going to be able to release it, was based on blood levels and clinical signs. If they had those high blood levels and they had those neurological, cardiovascular signs that showed that the bird was basically not functioning normal, we know that those clinical signs are not going to turn around. And even some of the ones that didn't have the really overt neurological signs, ones that we thought were milder clinical signs, we treat them, and we would find that they did well in a cage or in a mew or in a flight pen. When we went to start exercising them and really pushing them, because in order to be released, raptors have to be just top athletes. And so we put them into that rehabilitation program to recondition them and to get their cardiovascular system back up to where they could survive in the wild. And we find out that they weren't able to do that.
Their cardiac system.
So the damage was permanent. So we look at clinical signs and lead levels. Again, something that has been recently, because we're so much more aware of what low lead levels can do. Now the Raptor Center's clinic will treat birds that have lead levels down to 10 micrograms per deciliter. They use a slightly less aggressive form of treatment, but it's still the same process, the chelation, which is where you give them a chemical that then pulls the lead, binds to the lead, and pulls it out of the blood when it's then excreted
Right.
by the body.
Yeah, we're
So
going to talk about that treatment here in a second because
yep,
we can get into detail here. So,
yeah. So
okay.
so there's levels like below
Hmm.
10 micrograms per deciliter that we just don't necessarily treat.
Hmm.
There's then levels that we do treat, although the number of birds in that range is not as many as we would, yeah, not as high a percentage as we would hope for. And then there's
Right,
ones that
right,
we just can't treat because they're already showing signs of permanent damage.
right, right. Wow. What is the treatment, the specific treatment, and how, and then we can talk about like protocol, like 5 days on,
Yeah.
5 days off, or those kinds of
Okay.
things.
So the specific treatment is, well, there's a lot of peripheral things that we also do to support the body, to support the animal. The main treatment is to get the lead out, get the lead out of the body. Getting it out of the blood and pulling it out of the other tissues in the body requires a product that chelates. So lead chelation, again, is giving a chemical. We use calcium EDTA or a DMSA, giving products, therapeutics
Mhm.
that then bind to the lead. And then when the body excretes these products through the
Hmm.
kidneys or um, through the GI tract, when it excretes them, they take the lead out with them.
Okay.
So again, our two most common chelation products are calcium EDTA, which is injectable, and
And
DMS.
injectable subcutaneously, intramuscularly, IV, how do you give it?
We absolutely give it sub-Q and dilute it. So we
Hmm.
we dilute it with saline, not with the more normal Normasol type products because they will
Okay.
precipitate. So just saline so we dilute it with saline and give it sub-Q. It is labeled as giving IM, but IM causes a lot of muscle necrosis. It's extraordinarily painful, and it causes tissue reactions. So we have
Okay.
successfully used it subcutaneously for
Hmm.
decades,
Okay.
decades and decades. Um, DMSA is given orally. So
Okay.
slightly different approach. It's given orally into the GI tract, and then it's and you can use both products together depending on the level of
Hmm.
um,
Hmm.
blood lead
Hmm.
and what you're trying to accomplish.
Okay.
But they both have side effects. DMSA can cause GI upset because it's given orally. Again, we talked about the side effects of calcium EDTA. But
Hmm.
those products, as I say, they bind to and pull the lead out of the body. The other thing we do is if we see, and for the most part we don't, but if we see lead on radiographs,
Hmm.
lead in the GI tract,
Right.
then we will take action to get the lead out of the GI system so it's not sitting there just absorbing more and more and more.
Sure. So that requires a surgical type procedure,
Well,
kind
I
of.
mean, we sedate them. It's gastric lavage. Basically, we flood it
Okay.
out of the GI system.
Hmm.
And well, first, oftentimes what we'll do is with the eagle, because raptors cast, they after they eat within 24 hours, they bring up those undigested parts
Right. Into a
of the
pellet.
prey that
Yeah.
they ate
Hmm.
into a pellet and they cast it out. Sometimes, if it's just a small amount, we'll start the chelation immediately and then we'll give them like a meal of rat skin. Not really, I mean, mostly undigestible stuff
Right.
in
Right.
hopes that they'll create this big pellet and cast out
Yeah.
the
Using
um
the natural
the lead.
processes that are already
Exactly.
there to our advantage. I love
Exactly.
it. I love it.
If
Okay.
if that doesn't work or if we just have too much to
Hmm.
do that, then when they're stable, we sedate them and we put a fairly large tube down into the GI system, into the stomach, and we
Hmm.
just flush it out with warm saline with the bird on a tilted table so that as we flush the water, the fluids come right back out and hopefully loosen up and bring that lead out with it. And we
Right.
we watch to see if the lead comes out.
Oh, right. Yeah, I've seen this process,
Yeah.
and you have a screen bucket below it so you can see the lead if
Right.
it hits there. And of course you're intubating the
Use a white
birds.
towel. Oh
And
yeah.
white towel
Yeah.
is always good. And yeah, and the bird of course is anesthetized. So
And that's type,
'cause-
and as you mentioned, intubated so that there's no
Mhm.
chance of bringing all that into the respiratory system.
Right,
Respiratory
right.
system's probably already compromised. It sure doesn't need water
Anything
and
extra.
possibly
Yeah.
lead fragments in it.
Right, exactly. Ick, ick. So, okay, so thank you for explaining that process if you're finding the physical lead.
Yeah.
But a lot of times, of course, we don't,
Most of the
because
time we
it
don't.
yeah,
Yeah.
because it absorbs so quickly
Well, it
into the
absorbs
bloodstream. And they're
it's
tiny
actually,
amounts, right?
well, you're right. It takes so little and it absorbs within 24 hours. And then again, the bird will cast. And
Ah,
so,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
so, the bird has gotten rid of the lead on its own, but
Mm-hmm.
not before it's absorbed enough to often kill the bird.
Yeah, cause damage.
Yeah.
In the wild, if an eagle, and this is maybe a little bit of a guess on your part, but I'm going to ask you to do it anyway. That grain of rice level of lead in one go,
Hmm.
and it doesn't get treated. About how long might it take before the bird succumbs to that?
Yeah. Because, you know, it, it then moves into a failure to thrive, or not a failure to thrive, but a failure to be able to function normally. It can take
Hmm.
a couple weeks. So it can take a
Okay.
couple weeks of suffering, or it could be quicker. Um, but again, you start getting those signs, and then the question is, does it wait until the organ failure takes the animal out,
Ah,
or does it put the animal in the path of a car, in which
hmm.
case it's going to be much quicker.
Right. Very
So
true.
what the actual
Very true.
cause of death is going to determine how long it takes, but they
Ah,
can suffer for
hmm,
quite a while,
hmm.
in my mind, before
Yeah.
they're taken out of their misery.
Oh, awful.
Yeah.
Yeah, seeing what it looks like when they have clinical signs is heartbreaking.
Yeah,
Is
it is
absolutely
heartbreaking.
heartbreaking.
When we see these individual birds, so often the question is, are we having population effects? Does
Right?
it matter that the individual bird is
Hmm.
suffering? Because nature can be cruel.
Yeah,
Um,
nature's not nice. Nature's
no,
not
but
nice.
but from my perspective, this is something that we are causing, and
Hmm.
it is individual suffering of an
Hmm.
incredible magnitude. I mean, if
Hmm.
if I went out and intentionally did something to cause a bald eagle to suffer
Hmm.
that much, I'm pretty sure law enforcement, as well as most of the general public, would be all over me.
Oh,
But because it's kind of, yeah, indirect, we shoot a deer and then the eagle suffers. From my perspective, we're still causing that individual suffering, and that is unconscionable. Um,
yeah.
but that's, then a lot of people just look at that population level, and as we talked earlier, we don't know what the population impacts are.
Oh, right. And as we were talking, is that tipping point thing.
Yeah,
We throw a lot at not just eagles, but a lot of other animals,
all animals,
and all animals,
nature,
right?
Mother
Yeah.
Nature.
Yeah, right. But as
Yeah,
far as, I mean, we put roads everywhere, and we put
yeah,
buildings, and even when we're trying to do green energy, I mean, even the windmill blades,
yeah,
the wind turbine blades, I should say, and
yeah,
and then people doing intentional damage, and
yeah.
all of those things. Maybe just one of those things wouldn't be. I don't want to say big deal, but not as big a deal. But how many things do we have to put in obstacles do we have to put in front of them
Right,
until it tips over into, a no return type of scenario?
right.
And I don't know why, and it's because we're human, and we think mostly, even though we're in Minnesota and
We're
we
very,
do think,
we're very
but
human centric. We're
we're
very
very
human
human
centric.
centric, and
Yeah,
and we build the environment with us in mind, and
yeah,
not necessarily and I would argue sometimes we don't take it into account, all of us, when we're in our built environment, right?
true,
Um
true.
so so we're even there, we're
Right.
not
And,
always
and
successful.
oftentimes decisions are made that we don't know the impacts. Back to that need for more science and more
Right?
knowledge. So for instance, did we know that there would be problems with wind turbines? But by the
Right.
time we realized their problems, there were some pretty large wind turbine fields or farms that had been erected at large amounts of money with
Yeah. Huge
communities
investment.
reliant on them
Mm-hmm.
for
Mm-hmm.
electricity. And then
Mm-hmm.
we look at them and say, wow, we built that on a migration route on top of a hill with technology that didn't take this into account. Yeah, new technology. But anyway, we don't need to get into wind turbines.
Right.
But yeah, as we learn, there's decisions that were made 50 years ago that are still having their impacts
Oh, right. 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 Um,
before we knew better.
and yeah, roads too. I mean, roads,
Totally.
it's this almost catch 22 because roads kill animals that cross it. And if we're talking specifically about eagles, they're scavengers. And oh my gosh, it's a food,
It's a food
buffet
source.
almost. It's a food source.
Yeah.
And it's become a food
Yeah.
source. So we're like, well, good, bad, I don't know. From whose perspective,
Yeah.
is it good?
It's a it's
Um,
a food source for them, which is not a bad thing until they get hit by a car because they're on the side of the road eating.
right,
It's
right.
yeah.
And of course,
These are complex. There's no simple approach to all of this. It's very
exactly.
complex. Living with nature, living with
Living with
Mother
nature.
Nature and
And the whole thing
wildlife.
is that we are part of it, right? We're part of
Right?
Mother Nature. We're not separate from it, and it
No,
keeps showing us that no, we're part of it. Pay
absolutely,
attention. Mother Nature's talking to
absolutely.
you with all these things. So, okay, so back to treatment for our bald
Yeah,
eagle. We're giving calcium EDTA, or the other product was DMSA,
the
correct?
MSA. Yeah, it's
DMSA,
got a very long chemical name that
chemical
I won't
name.
bore you with.
Yeah. So how long in general? I mean, it's not like I'm giving it once and we're done.
Right. So, and that's part of the issue is it's a pretty invasive um, or aggressive treatment. So,
Hmm.
for calcium EDTA, for which we give to any eagle that's over 20 micrograms per deciliter in their blood lead,
Hmm.
unless the animal's euthanized, because that's
And
the
then
most
you
humane
said
thing we can do.
some of them are being treated at lower levels than that now, right?
Right.
At
And
10.
that's just with DMSA. So,
Got it. Okay.
but in
Okay.
either case, we treat. I mean, calcium EDTA is twice a day for 5 days. DMSA is also twice a day for 5 days. Like I say, we at above 20, we can give both. 10 to 20, we give just DMSA. So there's clinical decisions there, but we treat for 5 days,
Hmm.
which means, especially with calcium EDTA, I mean, this bird has to be grabbed and pulled out of its enclosure twice a day, which is pretty
Yeah.
stressful. Pretty
Yeah.
stressful.
Hmm.
And then we wait 2 days. So we do a 2 day washout
Okay.
before rechecking the blood lead levels. That just
Washout.
kind of,
Why are you saying washout? What does that
well,
mean?
because we're waiting for the calcium, the chelation to, to be excreted with the lead, as
Hmm.
well as understanding that some of the lead from the bones is going to come back into, or the other parts of the body is going to come back into the blood.
Oh, because
So
now there's this almost vacuum. I
yeah,
mean, that's not technically true, but
no,
you're
no, but
taking it out of the blood,
yeah, it
so
can
it's
come back.
getting filled.
Now,
Okay.
we don't see that rebound as much in eagles as they do in like waterfowl and some other animals.
Hmm.
However, we do need that 2 days of getting the calcium EDTA and the lead and just getting everything out of the system to see what their new lead level is.
Okay.
And if
Okay.
after that 2 day washout, it's still high, then we'll do another 5 days of treatment,
Hmm.
wait 2 days, and
Hmm.
recheck.
Hmm.
And so we do that until we get the blood lead down to those background lead levels.
The background lead. And can
Yeah.
and do we try to get it to zero? Can we get it to
No,
zero?
no, I mean, it would be nice, but we probably never will get it to zero. We do want to get it
Hmm.
back down to that, 10. Um, if it's over 20 micrograms per deciliter, we absolutely repeat.
Hmm.
Um, if it's 10 to 20, may repeat, may just do DMSA. Ideally,
Hmm.
we
Hmm.
get it down to below 10 micrograms per
Okay.
deciliter in the blood. But
Okay.
again, acknowledging that that doesn't actually tell us what the body burden is.
Right. Right. Do you think that there's the technology is going toward possibly, this is, I have no idea, improvements in any kind of technology that might help us in the future?
Sure, there are definitely some diagnostic techniques that are being studied to see if we can evaluate the level of lead in the bone
Hmm.
in an alive bird. Traditionally, the only way to test the bone and the liver and the rest of the body was either to do biopsies, which were very invasive, or necropsy. After the bird
Necropsy.
died,
Hmm.
we would test.
Hmm.
There are new systems that are being tested to look at lead levels in the bone. The
Hmm.
challenge there is that, finding how it works in each different species, where the testing spot is, it's usually on the leg, and just
Hmm.
getting the data to prove that it's accurate and reproducible and doable as a field unit. That said, it's
Right.
pretty exciting to see that we are coming up with those options.
Right, right. Um, and just as a note, an eagle is not a hawk, is not an owl, it's not they're all the and
Yeah,
every hawk is gonna every species is gonna be different. So that we're not just talking about
absolutely.
it's gonna work just for raptors. Well, maybe not. It might work
Right,
for eagles, but not work for anybody else.
right,
So that's just a little aside note that we've got
right.
loads of complications.
We do
It
let's
may be
and
different
in
in
the
males and females.
Yeah, and as a
Oh.
bird nerd, as a bird
Hmm.
person, one things I always kind of stress with students is, when we say bird, we're not saying the same thing as dog, cat, horse, cow. 'Cause, like, while we
Right.
have lots of breeds of dogs, they are still fundamentally the same species.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
when we say bird, we're talking about over 10,000 different species.
Hmm.
It's at a whole different taxonomical level, and
Hmm.
the relationship between them, we just can't extrapolate from one animal or one species to another the way we can from one dog breed to another.
Right. Right. I think I'm glad you brought that up. 'Cause yeah, over 10,000 different species and they're all different. They can be
Yeah,
very similar to
exactly.
each other, but they're different.
Yep.
And that we're still learning about those
Aren't
or
we?
different. Oh, I know.
Absolutely.
It's great. Yes. Bird nerds talking to each other.
Right.
Um, so so the treatment, I think we've covered most of the treatment. Once they're done with treatment, when definitely they're feeling better, the clinicians are like, "Yep, it's time to get this bird a little bit more exercise and get a chance to move around." So they move to a convalescent cage to maybe a room, and then they get monitored at a certain level. So every few days or once a week or something. And then when it's deemed that they're ready, then they get test flown, and we do a lot of creance flying. And then, of course, if we find that testing or challenging that cardiovascular system isn't working, then of course hard decisions have to be made.
Right.
But we're going to say in our example that things are going great. And then that animal gets a chance back in the wild. Do
Right.
we
That's the
have,
goal.
that's the goal. Do we have kind of percentages? I mean, it's hard from year to year because we get different numbers of eagles every year, but
Yeah.
percentages on like survival or I think I threw out earlier something like 90% of the eagles that come in have some level of lead. That
Yeah.
you can test. And I don't know if that still is holding or not, but that's what I was told way back then. And that number is just
Yeah.
stuck in my head.
It varies from 75 to 90, but it's, yeah,
Hmm.
by far um the most birds come in with some exposure.
Right. And then of those
Yeah.
that have some exposure, do we have an idea, or maybe we have to break it down further to
Yeah.
the ones with high exposure, this
Right.
approximate percentage do not survive, or overall, like how
Right.
many survive, how many do not
So,
survive?
um, a large percentage um, are in the higher levels.
Hmm.
It can be as high as 25 to 30% of the birds that come in. And
Hmm.
again, as I mentioned, we almost have this biphasic admission rate because
Hmm.
we have the background low levels, those low levels that aren't having
Hmm.
clinical signs, and those birds have a very, very, very high rate of survival, assuming that whatever else brought them in
It's
can be
survivable.
treated,
Yeah.
is
Right.
survivable, right? But the lead itself at those low levels is treatable, and their survival and ability to recover from the lead
Mm-hmm.
toxicity or lead
Mm-hmm.
exposure is good. Then we have that middle group that are the ones we always hope that you have clinical signs that we can treat, but reality is that most of them are then in that much higher level, and very few of those survive. Very, very few. And most of them
Mm-hmm.
are humanely euthanized because after doing this for 50 years, we can go through and know that certain clinical signs, certain situations, that it's non-reversible. We're not going to be
Right.
able to treat. The best thing we can do, the kindest thing we can do, is
Right.
let the bird not suffer, because it is so stressful to treat them. It's the clinical signs are stressful
Right.
and suffering.
Mm-hmm.
So we do have a high rate of euthanasia in those birds because they're not going to survive. Most of the birds at the very high levels don't survive. And I
Right.
think overall the number is like 25 to 30% of bald eagles that come into the
Mm-hmm.
Raptor Center are die or are euthanized from or because of lead toxicity.
Right. Oh, man. Yeah, it's just sobering, isn't it?
Right.
Just
And again,
absolutely
it's
sobering.
often adults, it's adult breeders, and
Mm-hmm.
that's jaw dropping.
And jaw dropping. And as we alluded to, if you look biologically, you know, what specific group of animals are more valuable to the population,
Right.
it's those animals that made it to adulthood and are
Right.
breeding.
Because they're
Those are more
expected to breed
important.
for
Mm-hmm.
25 to 30
Mm-hmm.
years.
Mm-hmm.
And once they've made it to that breeding age,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, they're a pretty stable part of the population in general,
Right.
unless something like avian influenza or lead toxicity takes them
Right.
out.
Right. So yeah, they're a very important piece
Hmm.
of the landscape, the population landscape.
Absolutely.
So yes, they're very, very important. Much more important than the chicks, even though we all love the chicks and
We
we want
love
the
the
chick
chicks, right?
love the chicks, we want them to survive. That doesn't,
Right,
lessen how important they are, but as far as the population is concerned, it's the adults that are
right,
important
right.
for the population.
Yeah.
So super sobering, but we've talked a little bit, but I want to talk a little bit more about how the Raptor Center and others, so it's not just the Raptor
Yeah.
Center
Yeah.
working toward this, is trying to tackle this wicked problem that we know can be solved. So we've done it from research, and in the show notes, I'm gonna link to some of the research and some of the research papers and things like that that the Raptor Center has put out over time.
Right.
So, people can feel free to go ahead and read those. So we've put out many papers over the years, over especially lead, but a lot
Hmm.
of other things as far as rehabilitation of raptors. But what other things did we think was important and still think are important?
Yeah. So, obviously, providing scientific information, being sources of sound science, and
Mm-hmm.
disseminating or sharing that information. So, publications are one of the ways that we disseminate the
Mm-hmm.
information.
Mm-hmm.
We have frequently been asked to testify at congressional hearings or in with lawmakers to answer their questions, and so
Mm-hmm.
providing information there. And for the past several decades, we've really focused on hunter education.
Mm-hmm.
Back in the early 2000s, mid 2000s, we actually had a bit of a revelation. Anyway, we decided to bring all of the stakeholders together. So not just conservation groups and those of us working with
Mm-hmm.
raptors, but
Mm-hmm.
people from the DNR, hunters, biologists,
Mm-hmm.
nonprofits working, women hunters, because the issue of the public health implications of eating
Right.
lead from in your venison. So
Mm-hmm.
we have brought all of the stakeholders together to say, how can we solve this problem? And
Mm-hmm.
again, lead banning, the banning of lead ammunition would be a significant step in this,
Mm-hmm.
as California's done, and hunter education. Hunters, when they truly understand the issue,
Mm-hmm.
and again have all their questions answered, um, they will usually make the right choice. So we've worked with this group that we generically called Hunter's Choice, but it was an intentional effort to bring all the stakeholders together at the table, to
Mm-hmm.
create education programs, to have hunters
Mm-hmm.
talking to hunters, to effectively bring the public education messaging to the
Mm-hmm.
people that are making those decisions, that are going
Mm-hmm.
into the stores and buying lead
Mm-hmm.
ammunition
Mm-hmm.
or copper ammunition. And so that's been our big focus.
Um, and just maybe another little aside, let's talk about copper and let's talk
Okay.
about other lead or
Yep.
other metals that
Right.
can be used in hunting. And so why are they better than the lead?
So that's always a question, like, isn't copper toxic? Well, copper can be toxic. The big difference is that lead ammunition fractures so much. It hits the animal, it's so soft it fractures. When you see a copper bullet,
Mm-hmm.
it goes into the animal after it's been shot and it mushrooms, but it retains all its mass. It doesn't spill out into the and just seed the tissues
Mm-hmm.
that the
Mm-hmm.
animals are going to eat.
Mm-hmm.
And so copper, A, it's less toxic. B, it doesn't disseminate into the meat. And so it's really
Mm-hmm.
just a matter of removing the bullet.
Right.
Or yeah, most raptors won't eat a significantly sized bullet. I mean, they will
Right.
just eat around it.
Right.
Um,
Where the other
one of the
pieces they can't even tell. They just rip it up
right, they don't
and
even see.
swallow
Oh
it.
yeah,
They don't see it. They
the
can't
lead
smell it.
just
They're not tasting it. It just goes right on down.
it's right,
Mm-hmm.
right is seeded throughout. It's just ingested. So that's one of the big issues. The A lot of people, there's a little confusion because there's all lead ammunition. There's copper jacketed ammunition.
Right. We don't want copper
That is
jacketed.
right. That's still lead because once that
Mm-hmm.
copper jacket comes off, the lead is still seeded throughout
Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
gut pile and the tissues of the deer
Mm-hmm.
after it's been shot. So we want the all copper ammunition. And interestingly, I mentioned earlier that before California's ban, the manufacturers didn't even label it as all copper because what they labeled it as was their premium ammunition. It was like their best ammunition. So it's not that the copper doesn't work. It does require hunters to do
Right.
some different sighting, and it does have some
Mm-hmm.
differences, but it's an incredibly effective killing agent, if you want to call it that, an all
Right.
copper bullet. It will
Mm-hmm.
drop a deer very effectively. So again, it's not trying to take away an important tool that's the only tool. A copper rifle bullets do work.
Yeah, it's just a
Um,
shift. It's a
it's
shift.
a shift. It's a
It's a
shift.
sh-
And because there's so
Mhm.
many different types of guns, and I won't go too far down this path because I am not an expert in
Mhm.
ammunition and guns.
Mhm.
Um, because there's so many different types of guns, yeah, a lot of it originally was the availability. Like, was it
Mhm.
available in all copper?
Mhm.
And again, this is where California's ban has helped us because the industry needing to address the California ban on lead ammunition and provide California hunters with usable
An alternative.
ammunition
Mhm.
has been very helpful for all the rest of us.
Mhm.
The other question is always,
Made it
yeah,
financially that incentive.
made it
Um
available. You're right.
yeah.
Finances are always provided as another thing. Like, lead ammunition is so much cheaper. It is a little bit cheaper with the generic. Premium
Mhm.
lead ammunition is pretty much the same price as the copper
It's copper.
ammunition.
Mhm.
And the other thing we look at is, you mentioned you give a box of copper ammunition to your
For
family
Christmas.
members who are hunters. Um, yes, you may spend an extra 15, $10 on that box of ammunition. Um, but that if that's what you're using to harvest the deer, that box is going to last for a long time. Now, there are some
Right.
issues about sighting in your gun, et cetera.
Right.
And again, I'm going to leave the hunters to talk about that because they talk about that all the time.
Mhm.
Um, but it's not in the overall. I mean, I'll tell you that my husband's gas in his car. costs more to go out hunting. And
Uh-huh.
that extra $10 that's spread out over years. I mean, the first box of copper ammunition he had lasted for, I don't know, 5 years or so for him.
Okay.
So it's, yeah, it is maybe a little bit more expensive. It's incremental, and is it significant to most hunters given everything else they spend on their hunting trips? Probably not. But it's a worthwhile cost for to save uh, our bald eagles and other wildlife. And again,
Right.
it's
And
it's the same price
I
as
would
lead
push again.
ammunition,
Yep. And I
premium.
would push again
Yep.
that if a lot of hunters are thinking and are conservationists, that this
Yeah,
would be a change that is not
exactly.
that hard,
Right.
but helps a lot. Um,
Right.
yeah,
It does help a
in a
lot.
lot of different ways. I also wanted to bring up so there's other organizations too
Hmm.
that are not like involved in rehabilitation, but are laser
Absolutely.
focused on this issue. One
Yep.
of them is called Sporting Lead Free. We'll
Hmm.
put that link in the show
Yep.
notes. A really, really good organization, also based on working with hunters.
Absolutely.
And
And the Isaac
organizations
Walton
built
League
from
in
hunters.
Minnesota has been very
Yes.
active. Yep.
Yes. Yep. Isaac Walton League. I'll put
Yep.
that in the show notes
Yep.
as well, so people can get information about that.
Yep.
Um, so what else, what have we forgotten? I mean, this is such a huge thing. I don't know if we can completely cover it in an hour and
Yeah.
a half.
I think the important thing is to have the conversation, and to have the
Mhm,
conversation in a way that people can hear and people can listen, and people listen to the hunters to hear their concerns. And just, so often, like so many other issues, it's just been lines in the sand. you know
mhm,
we're just not going to, the other side can't be trusted to make good decisions, whatever that is. And the one thing that we've
right.
learned through the Hunter's Choice program is that, again, if we can get people to the table, talking, listening, and truly engaging in conversation, we can make progress.
Mhm,
I do personally think that ultimately progress needs to be a ban on lead ammunition. And that's my public health background as well as my veterinary background, because it's not just wildlife. It is, the lead that is in the venison that we serve to our children,
mhm,
that are in
mhm,
food shelves.
mhm.
Um, we absolutely need to be addressing this issue because we just know that lead is wickedly bad.
It's wickedly bad. It's a wicked problem.
Yep.
But yep, we can solve it. We can solve it. We've solved other big issues. We can
Right.
solve this one. And
Right.
I'm in complete agreement with you. But I think that it is bringing a lot of people to the table, and drawing those lines in the sand, as much as it might make you feel good, say, look, hey, I'm right. It doesn't get us anywhere,
Yep.
or at least not
Exactly.
in the way we want.
No,
Uh,
it's not
uh,
productive.
it's not
Not productive at
productive.
all.
Not
Yeah.
productive. So I think that this is a wonderful place to I don't want to say end this conversation, because I think this is such an important but ongoing conversation. But on a hopeful note, because I think that we can, and we need to have hope in this issue.
Right.
Because unlike some of these other challenges that we really can't um do anything about, how an animal gets an infection or something like that, like we were talking about with avian influenza or West Nile or those kinds of things. This one we can.
Right.
And yes, and there's some hope. And
Yeah.
where there's hope, man, we can do so much.
That's why we keep doing this work,
And that's why
because
we
we
keep
can
doing
make
this work.
changes in our
Hmm.
world.
Yeah, we can. So let's do it together. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
Gail. Great conversation.
A big thank you to Dr. Julia Ponder, the Director Emeritus of the Raptor Center at the University of Minnesota, for joining me today. Wildlife Rehabilitation from Rescue to Release is a production of Partners for Wildlife, working hand in hand with wildlife rehabilitators and the veterinarians to support them to improve the welfare of orphaned, ill, and injured wildlife. Our executive producer is me, Gail Buell. I'm the Partnership Coordinator for Partners for Wildlife with the Raptor Center at the University of Minnesota College of Veterinary Medicine. Our producer is Reese Rosado.